Last thing I'm going to slip in here is just a little bit on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, because Texas Tech, if you've been paying attention at all, you know that Texas Tech has dominated the transfer portal this offseason in football. They're having a pretty good basketball offseason too. Just paying JT Toppin $4 million helps. Now Darian Williams in the portal, so that hurts. But focusing in on football here, Texas Tech got another one, man. Another one. David Bailey, Stanford outside linebacker. Stanford has a coaching change, right? Troy Taylor gets pushed out by Andrew Luck. So David Bailey, who visited Texas and UCLA, decides to go to Texas Tech. So here's Texas Tech, little old Texas Tech out recruiting Texas for yet another player. Depending on where you look, the number 1 or 2 transfer class in the country for the Red Raiders, and it just keeps getting better. And we're just at the point where, I think we're beyond the point, honestly, where Texas Tech has no excuse to not win double-digit games this year. I'll temper it at no excuse to not win double-digit games. I won't even go all the way and say, hey, you've got to win the conference or you've got to make the playoff, but you got to win double-digit games. You got to break through that glass ceiling that's been there since Leach left. You cannot go out and get this much talent and have this much hype around it without it happening. I saw this. If you want a good way to contextualize this and what Texas Tech has done, if you're sitting here saying like, okay, great portal class, John, but what does that really mean? This was from the great Parker Fleming, who says blue chip recruits through the portal this year. Texas Tech has 12. The rest of the Big 12 has 12. Texas Tech has as many as the entire rest of the conference, which is 15 teams. You can see by position, a couple edges, a couple offensive tackles. That's how you know you're spending money, because edges and offensive tackles, as well as quarterback, like that's as expensive as it gets in the portal. And they've got a couple of those. And it almost feels a little bit gratuitous at this point. Like, okay, Tech, we get it, man. We get it. You guys have money. You guys are spending the money. You've got a really deep football roster now because of it. Just go play and go win. Who else are we going to add? We do still we've got a spring window to get through here with the portal. What else could possibly happen? Let's see what this other on 3 bit was that I was going to share with you. Oh, that was JT Toppin. Okay, so we talked about Toppin. Look, we all know how this is. Cody Campbell bankrolling this. This is kind of almost the opposite of the BYU conversation. That's not fair to say the opposite, because Texas Tech has plenty to sell as well, including that unbelievable new football facility that they have that I think most of us saw the video of that was rolling around a couple of months ago. Tech has a lot to sell. The program has been improving slightly under Joey McGuire. He's a really energetic coach. That's a fan base that cares a lot. And they've got a sterling, pristine new facility, a Taj Mahal, as Bill Snyder would say. They've got a lot to sell, but they definitely have the money. That's definitely the money. And I don't think there's any shame in that at all. I know with BYU, it gets a little bit more touchy because of some of the religious overtones that are there from people on both sides of that. Texas Tech, look, we got money. We got Cody Campbell. You don't. Deal with it and teach me the rules. I'll play the game. That's the rules of engagement these days in college athletics. Go do it. But man, the concern I would have, if there is a concern I would have for Texas Tech here, it's how do the pieces fit? And I know it's easy to just say, well, you would just overwhelm with talent. It'll be fine. How do the pieces fit? I am a Kansas State fan. Okay. You can see by this was made in 1997. Okay. K-State winning the 1997 Fiesta Bowl that I'm wearing right now. I believe the kids call that drip, ladies and gentlemen. My point being, as a Kansas State fan, I saw how spending about the most money you could possibly spend can go disastrously wrong this basketball season if the fit is not there. Probably less volatility on that front in football because there are so many other players on the roster than there are in basketball, right? Basketball, you have 1 or 2 things go really poorly. It's going to make a bigger difference than in football, where you're spread more thin on all of that. So there may be less risk of that, but more money, more problems. That can happen. You can't have locker room issues if stuff's going around with that. I don't know. Tech probably has enough money to just satisfy people, even if there are problems. But that will be the thing I think Joey McGuire has to do. Manage expectations, make sure that these pieces fit. Of course, a lot will be on Baron Morton also, just to make sure that he is up to par and being able to captain the ship, because that is such an important position in college football, quite obviously. But I think Tech will just be, because of that, and because we have seen in the Big 12 how this can blow up in your face when you are out there very proudly spending money. This becomes, I mean, is there a more fascinating team than Texas Tech this year in college football to watch, just in terms of like an intrigue and interest perspective? I mean, they're definitely going to be up there. And I think that's objectively true. I don't think that's just a Big 12 centric point of view here. Like when you're out recruiting Ole Miss and LSU and Oregon in the portal, you're cooking the way that Joey McGuire has been cooking with that. James Blanchard, that whole crew. I mean, that's going to draw a lot of eyeballs and a lot of interest from other people. Well, how well is that going to work? Does that mean the Big 12, can the Big 12 really buy a roster that is worthy of competing at or near the top of the sport? I guess we'll find out. We already saw, to my point in the last segment, Arizona State with a roster that was nowhere near the top of the sport, was damn near able to beat Texas. That was one play away from beating Texas in the playoff. Big 12 was able to do that without an expensive roster at all. I mean, that was an Arizona State program that was having to rebuild itself from the ground up. And the point there is they're picked dead last in the Big 12. If you're picked dead last in the Big 12, I don't care what you want to say about how even the conference is. That means you're not an overwhelmingly talented team, just in terms of raw physical talent. Could be undervalued, and sure, that definitely happened to some extent with Arizona State. But you do not have a top echelon talent roster. You can now make the argument Texas Tech does. We'll see how that works coming out of the Big 12. Can that legitimately do it? They should be a program that has a lot of eyeballs on them because of that this year. The other thing that I would make, the other point that I would make on this is just that, you know, we're still in this environment of wild, wild west. We'll see what happens with the House settlement, and that's going through final stages, it would appear, in court in terms of getting an approval. But, man, Texas Tech would prefer the system to stay the way it is right now. You know, we've got Baylor and BYU fans fighting in the chat about this system, and it's created a lot of animosity with the Robert Wright situation. But Texas Tech would just as soon see it stay exactly as it is right now. As long as it's just going to be a money thing, we can compete for days. Cody Campbell just sold another company for $4 billion. We'll be all right. Going to be all right. Not going to be losing any money battles there. If that is the be all end all and how you're going to recruit, Texas Tech's going to be just fine in that department. It would certainly appear. So anyway, for the Big 12 in general, it's one of those where, like, if this keeps escalating and prices keep going up, and, you know, last year it was Coleman Hawkins getting $2 million. That was the big thing. And now JT Toppin's getting $4 million, and nobody is making nearly as big a deal out of it as they did with Coleman Hawkins last year. You can see the way the price is going up. There's some inflation here, right? Some inflation happening in how much the guys are getting paid. That's going to be a tough thing for Big 12 schools to keep up with, for most Big 12 schools to keep up with if it keeps going that way. Texas Tech would be one that it may not be really that big of an issue for them to keep up with it if it's going to keep heading that way.